The title flashed across every major news outlet within hours. Racist white woman throws her drink on black waiter, she is shocked when he fights back. But that headline only told the first 30 seconds of the story. The rest took years to unfold. Mayfair Grill, downtown Charlotte, Friday night, 8:47 p.m. The restaurant was packed, the air thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and the low hum of old money pretending it was new. Marcus Hayes moved between the tables like someone who had memorized every inch of the floor since he was 16. Tall, calm-eyed, 28 years old, wearing the kind of waiter who remembered that you liked your martini bruised and your steak blue without ever writing it down. He wore the black vest and crisp white shirt like armor he'd earned. At table 12 sat Karen Whitlock, 54, blonde highlights, diamond studs the size of dimes, 3 vodkas deep and furious that the world had not paused to admire her. Her husband, red-faced and silent, stared at his phone. Their adult daughter, Ashley, kept trying to shrink into the banquet. Marcus approached with the replacement fillet she had demanded after claiming the first was cold in the middle. "Here you are your steaks, Mrs. Whitlock. I had the kitchen fire a fresh one, medium rare just the way." He never finished the sentence. Karen looked up, eyes glassy with alcohol and something darker. "You people always take forever," she hissed, loud enough for 3 nearby tables to freeze. "I knew the second I saw you this place had gone downhill." The slur followed a half-second later, sharp and ugly, the one that still makes black folks flinch even when they've heard it 1,000 times. Marcus's smile didn't break, but something behind his eyes shifted. He set the plate down carefully. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you once to lower your voice and speak to me with respect." Karen laughed, a brittle sound. She picked up her vodka soda, ice cubes clinking like warning bells, and flung the entire drink straight into his face. The restaurant went dead silent. Liquid ran down Marcus's cheeks, soaked his collar, dripped onto his shoes. For one heartbeat he stood motionless, breathing through his nose. Then he reached into his apron, pulled out a perfectly folded white napkin, and wiped his face with deliberate calm. Karen smirked, triumphant. "Know your place, boy." Marcus looked at her dead in the eye. "No, ma'am," he said, voice steady as winter steel. "Tonight you're going to learn yours." He turned on his heel and walked toward the kitchen. Phones were already out. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, this is going viral." Karen rolled her eyes and reached for her husband's bourbon like nothing had happened. But Marcus wasn't heading to the kitchen to cry or quit. He was going to get his mother. Eleanor Hayes, Miss Ellie to half of Charlotte, had been the head pastry chef at Mayfair Grill for 32 years. She was 63, 5'0", dark skin glowing under the kitchen lights, and the only person in the building who could make grown men weep with a single slice of her brown butter bourbon pecan pie. She was also Marcus's mom, though most of the staff only knew that because they'd seen the framed photo of the two of them at his college graduation on her station. Marcus stepped through the swing door, still dripping. "Mama," he said quietly, "I need you." Miss Ellie took one look at her son and the fire of 1,000 righteous ancestors lit behind her eyes. She untied her apron, smoothed her chef's coat, and marched out onto the dining room floor like Moses about to part something far less forgiving than a sea. The entire room watched as this tiny woman walked straight to table 12. Karen looked up, annoyed. "Can I help you?" Miss Ellie smiled, the sweetest smile you ever saw, the kind that could butter toast or cut glass. "Yes, ma'am, you can. My name is Eleanor Hayes. That young man whose face you just baptized with vodka is my only child. He has worked 80-hour weeks since he was 14 years old to put himself through Morehouse College with honors. He has never missed a shift, never raised his little sister after I lost my husband to cancer, and still found time to coach middle school basketball on Saturdays for free. And tonight he asked you, politely, to treat him like a human being. You chose not to." Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Miss Ellie continued, voice soft but carrying to the rafters. "So here's what's going to happen. You are going to stand up, walk to the front, and apologize to my son in front of every soul in this room. Then you are going to pay your bill, leave a 100% tip, and never set foot in this restaurant again. Because if you don't, I will personally make sure every news station from here to Toronto knows exactly who you are, where you live, and what you did tonight." And trust me, baby, I've been on television more times than you've had hot dinners. A murmur rippled through the dining room, half awe, half terror. Karen's face cycled through red, white, and purple. Her husband finally found his voice. Karen, let's just go. But Ashley, the daughter who had been silent all night, suddenly stood up. No, she said, voice shaking. Mom, she's right. You were horrible. You've been horrible my whole life, and I'm tired. She looked at Marcus, eyes wet. I'm so sorry. That was disgusting. There's no excuse. Karen stared at her daughter like she'd been slapped. The manager, who had been hovering uselessly, finally stepped forward with the check presenter already loaded with the bill and an apology letter from corporate. Karen's hands shook as she signed, leaving a tip larger than the bill itself. She stood, chair scraping, and walked, stumbled, really, to where Marcus now stood near the host stand. Every phone in the building was trained on her. She looked at the floor. I'm sorry. The words came out strangled. Marcus met her eyes, not with hate, with something far worse, pity. I forgive you, he said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. Go home, Mrs. Whitlock, and do better. Karen fled into the night, husband trailing behind her like a deflated balloon. Ashley lingered long enough to press a folded note into Marcus's hand before leaving too. The restaurant erupted in applause. Someone started chanting, Miss L.I. Miss L.I. until the tiny woman raised one hand and the room quieted again. Y'all act like I did something special, she laughed. All I did was love my child out loud. Try it sometime. But the story didn't end there. 3 days later Ashley Whitlock showed up at the restaurant during Marcus's lunch shift. No cameras, no entourage. Just a nervous hands and red eyes. She asked to speak to Marcus and Miss Ellie together. They sat in the back booth usually reserved for staff breaks. I left my parents' house, Ashley began without preamble. I'm staying with my cousin in Raleigh. I came to apologize again, properly. And, she slid an envelope across the table. This is the tuition for the rest of your master's program at UNC Charlotte. I sold the Rolex my dad gave me for graduation. It's not repayment. There isn't enough money in the world for that. It's just a start. Marcus started to protest, but Miss Ellie laid a hand on his arm. Let her, baby, Ashley continued, voice breaking. My mom is in therapy. Court mandated after the video hit 10 million views. She hates me right now. But for the first time in my life I feel like I can breathe. She looked at Miss Ellie. You said love your child out loud. I never knew what that looked like until 3 nights ago. Thank you for showing me. Miss Ellie reached across and squeezed the girl's hand. You're somebody's child too, sugar. Don't you forget it. Marcus graduated with his MBA the following spring. Ashley was in the audience, cheering louder than anyone. Miss Ellie baked 12 pecan pies for the reception and made Ashley help her serve them, the two of them laughing in the kitchen like old friends. Karen Whitlock never came back to Mayfair Grill. Rumor is she moved to Arizona, sold the big house, and volunteers 3 days a week at a domestic violence shelter. Some nights she still wakes up crying, hearing her daughter's voice saying I'm tired. And Marcus, he bought the Mayfair Grill 2 years later when the original owner retired. First thing he did was rename the private dining room, the Eleanor Hayes Room, and hang a plaque that reads, Love people out loud, the rest will follow. Every new hire has to read the plaque on their first day. Most of them cry, because sometimes the strongest way to fight back isn't with fists or words. Sometimes it's with a mother's love, a stranger's courage, and the refusal to let hate have the last word. And that video, it's still out there, but now when people share it, they don't just see a drink thrown in a black man's face. They see what happened next. They see humanity, messy, furious, broken, and capable of choosing better, win.